In this video, we are going to talk about the shape tools and the Pathfinder tools. So you have various already made shapes that you can use. Up here on the toolbox, you have the rectangle tool, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, and flare. The flare tool is not always your friend. When you use it, it tends to crash our computers here at the school. The way these tools work is you just select them and then you can click and drag and click and drag. Let's go back to just black and white. You can just click and drag and create some shapes. If you want to see all the tools at once, there's this great little thing called a flyaway, where if you go over to this little arrow, it makes it so this is a free floating little palette right here. Let's actually select these and get rid of them. So if I select these all and hit delete, I can get rid of them. So here's what the rounded shape looks like, the circular shape, the polygon, and the star. Now you may wonder, like, well, what if I need something a specific shape? A specific size. Well, if you select one of these tools and click once on the background, a little window will pop up. And then if I wanted this a perfect square, I could say I want this 150 by 150 points. And it will give me a perfect square. The great thing is that on things like the polygon and the star, it gives you even more options. So the polygon, I can even say how many sides I want. So if I want a 7-sided shape with this radius, I press OK, and now I will get a 7-sided shape. Same with if I click and I choose 3-sided, I will get an isosceles triangle, which might be very helpful in your design. It's the same thing with the star tool. If I click once on the background, I can actually choose how many points. I may want a 9-pointed star, and I can actually change the radius. So let's leave it like this for now. Now we have our 9-pointed star. Let's give it a little bit of room. I have my 9-pointed star, but let's do this again and change the radius, like the inside radius, to something like 20. And now I still have a 9-pointed star, but you will see it's very different because this inside radius is much smaller. Now, before I go on and talk about Pathfinder tools, I do want to give the kind of advice/warning that when you're making a design, it is a lot more interesting if you do not use these standard shapes. It is a lot more interesting if you start maybe with a standard shape, but then use one of the tools we've talked about in the other lessons, such as the direct select, click outside the shape, then on the anchor, and maybe like pull this one up. Even something like that makes it look much more custom and interesting. And maybe I would pull down this and pull down this. Even something like a square, so even if we start with a square, maybe we want to use a convert anchor. So if we had a shape and we were using a square behind some words or something, why not change this and make this a little bit curved? And that will make the design so much more interesting and not like you just took a bunch of standard shapes and laid them on top of each other. All right. So I'm going to select all these again, press delete, get rid of them. So sometimes the best way to make a shape is actually by combining or cutting apart other shapes. If I tried to make a crescent shape with my pen tool, I could click and let go and curve, but it would look pretty terrible. It would work much better if I had 2 circles overlapping and I cut them apart from each other. So how do you do that? You do that with your Pathfinder tools. So where do you find your Pathfinder tools? Well, if you go to Window and then Pathfinder, your Pathfinder palette will pop up. The way that you use the Pathfinder tools is that you first have to select shapes that are somehow interacting with each other. Right now, I have two separate circles. They're not connected in any way. They're just one circle sitting on top of another. And in fact, let's give these some colors so you can see them a little bit easier. I have my blue, and when I make a green, oops, got to select this one to choose that. So I'll choose that one as my blue. Let's make it a darker blue. So I have two shapes that just happen to be sitting on top of each other. So if I select both of them, so if I take my black arrow and drag over both of them, I can use my selection tools. Unite works by combining them together into one shape. I'm going to Control Z and undo that because that's not what I want. This next one is minus front. So it takes whatever shape is in front and subtracts it from the one that's in the back. This gives me that very nice crescent shape. But I'm going to Control Z to undo so we can see what some of the other ones do. Intersect creates only the areas where they both overlap. And exclude makes it so it's a shape that's only where they do not overlap. There's one more of the Pathfinders. Those were technically shape modes, but I call them all kind of the Pathfinder tools because they're under the Pathfinder palette. But this is very useful, and it is divide. And what divide does is when I click it, it will actually cut this into 3 shapes. So I actually have 3 shapes right now. So, but right now they're all grouped together. So in order to ungroup them, they're all kind of stuck together. I right click and ungroup. Then I can move them separately. And I have my nice crescent, and I have this thing over here, and I have this thing over here, and maybe I want to use it for something later. Maybe I turn this crescent into a mouth. Maybe I turn this into, I make it smaller. Maybe I turn that into a nose. And maybe this turns into like some little squinty eyes, and I can actually make this smaller, and I can copy and paste it. Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and now I have 2. And now I've made like a little clown face. So again, if you want to, so let's do it actually with these shapes here. If you want to use the divide tool, you start with a shape. You have another shape overlapping it in some way. Select them both. Use any of these shape modes or the divide tool. But if I do the divide tool, I need to right click and ungroup. And now I have 3 separate shapes. If you have any questions, please let me know. That's what I'm here for.